During the course of this presentation, we'll cover periodic engine and chassis maintenance, engine removal, engine overhaul and component reconditioning, and engine assembly. We'll also cover carburetor service, electrical systems operation and troubleshooting, and we'll finish up with fork rebuilding.
Engine service should be performed in accordance with the maintenance schedules outlined in both the workshop and owner's manuals. At the top of the list, we find valve clearance adjustment. You'll notice that this item is not considered part of the pre-delivery inspection, but rather is to be checked after the initial break-in at about 1,000 kilometers or 600 miles and every 12,000 kilometers or 8,000 miles thereafter. There are several items that are often overlooked during the course of routine maintenance. Items such as fuel and cooling system components don't often cause problems, but usually when they do, it's at a most inopportune time. If you can spot a potential problem before it has a chance to develop, you'll be doing yourself and your customer a real service. Take the time to check all fluid connections as well as fluid levels, and on this unit, don't forget to inspect the fuel filter as well. A special note about the cooling system. The radiator core on this model, as with those of all other liquid-cooled Yamahas, is aluminum. The engine block is aluminum alloy. It's absolutely critical that only a 50-50 mix of distilled water and aluminum-compatible antifreeze be used in this system.
After removal of the body panels, radiator trim covers, fairing lowers and right side horn assembly, remove the radiator mount bolts and push the rad and fan assembly as far forward as possible. It's not necessary to disconnect or remove any of the cooling system connections. Disconnect the spark plug leads and remove both front and rear air baffle plates. The YICS chamber is best removed by disconnecting the hoses for cylinders number 1 and 4 at the cylinder head and hoses 2 and 3 at the chamber itself. Remove the chamber from the left side. Removing the cylinder head covers is a matter of proper positioning. Do not force the covers over the heads or frame. There is sufficient room to remove them without damage to either the seals or casting surfaces.
Before going any further, make sure all the oil passage caps have remained in place. Oil pressure in this engine, as with the Vision engine, is dependent on these plugs being properly fitted.
After removal of the spark plugs, timing cover, and rotor access plate, rotate the crankshaft in its normal operating direction, counterclockwise for this model, until the number 1 cylinder is positioned at top dead center of its compression stroke, as indicated by the T1 flywheel mark. TAPPET adjustment must be performed when the engine is cold. Intake clearance specification is 0.11 millimeters to 0.15 millimeters. Exhaust clearance is 0.16 millimeters to 0.20 millimeters. If clearance on any valve is out of spec, measure the available clearance and make note of it.
Using the TAPPET Shim tool is a simple operation, but there are a few procedures and cautions that should be understood.
This valve tool will cause the shim cups to rotate as the valves are being depressed. As such, these shim removal slots must be positioned properly so that they're accessible after the valves have been depressed. The tool must be installed with the stem parallel to the cam lobe. Be sure that the tool is centered properly between the cam lobes. This will ensure that pressure is applied only to the shim cup, leaving the shims free for removal.
Replacement shims are available in 25 different sizes, ranging in thickness from 2 millimeters, a number 200 shim, to 3.2 millimeters, a number 320 shim. You may on occasion find a half size, such as a number 268 or a number 262, that have been installed as original factory parts. These half sizes are not available from replacement part stock, but can be reused if the need arises. Selecting the proper size replacement shim is a simple matter of referring to the shim charts in the service manual.
Using your measurement of available clearance, we'll say in this case it was 0.25 millimeters. Follow the chart across to a point directly under the shim number you've just removed. Again, we'll say in this case it was a number 270. The required shim is a number 275.
In a case where the original shim is a factory-installed half size, the number must be rounded off to the nearest replacement size. If the shim were a number 262, you'd consider it to be a number 260. If it were a number 268, consider it to be a number 270.
Properly installed, the shim number faces the shim cup, away from the cam lobe. The shim sizes indicated by both the intake and exhaust shim charts will, in most cases, be correct, but it is necessary to verify proper clearance after any shim replacement. Before you do that, though, it's a good idea to rotate the engine through one full cycle. This will ensure that the new shim is properly seated. Firing order on this engine is 1, 3, 2, 4. And as with all Yamaha engines, cylinder numbering is done from left to right, as viewed from the rear, and in order of connecting rod placement on the crankshaft. Tappet adjustment should also be performed in a 1, 3, 2, 4 sequence. From top dead center on compression for number 1 cylinder, the crank is rotated 180 degrees to top dead center compression for number 3 cylinder.
Since there are no flywheel marks to indicate top dead center for either number 3 or number 4 cylinders, you'll have to be relatively close in your estimation of 180 degrees of crankshaft rotation. From the top dead center compression on number 3 to top dead center compression for number 2 requires 180 degrees plus 70 degrees of crankshaft rotation.
Top dead center for number 2 is indicated by the T2 rotor mark.
Top dead center for number 4 occurs 180 degrees after top dead center for number 2, and again, there's no flywheel mark.
Before replacing the cylinder head covers, again, be sure that all the oil passage caps are in place. Check the cylinder cover seals and replace them if necessary. If you've been careful in the removal and refitting of these covers, the seals will not require frequent replacement.